Good morning and welcome to this month's session or episode of Wise Women and Good Men. I am thrilled today that we have Susan Heaton-Wright, who is a super communicator from across the pond, meaning she is a Brit. And without further ado, Susan, let's take it away.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I've been so excited about meeting you online again and meeting all of your listeners.
Well, Susan and I, in all um, full disclosure, Susan and Nick Simon, who is not with us today, are podcasters. And after I published my second book, Courageous Communication: A Return to Civility, they introduced me. And in the middle, I was in a different room and quite embarrassing. In the middle of it, I'm on the ground floor of a two-story house. I was upstairs, and my dog, who sadly passed away, started barking because the gardeners were here, and I had to take him downstairs. And when I came back up, I heard Susan and Nick saying, "Boy, this has never happened before." Well, I have to let you know that poor Grigsby, who is an Australian Shepherd and my soulmate dog, is no longer with us.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry to hear that.
yes, and my elder daughter, the one who was impacted by the Eaton fire, she found a fire dog refugee, which I share with my younger daughter, and he happens to be right under my feet at the moment.
Oh,
But he's a little teeny guy, and we don't have to worry about him barking. But Susan, and the reason I really wanted her to come, and she's going to give us a brief bio, she's done all things. She's been an actor, a singer. She is a super communicator. She won an award for being one of the top 100 female entrepreneurs in the UK, a podcaster, an author, and she did a TEDx speech recently. And she's really going to have to, after she gives us a bio, I'm going to ask her to take a deeper dive into her TEDx for several people, including yours truly, who would really love to do one. But without further ado, let's start out with the bio. Susan, tell us about you.
well, I am a former prize-winning opera singer, and which was fantastic. And if you watch the TEDx talk, you will find out how my voice was discovered and what I did as a result of it. And then after I had my son, it was very difficult combining singing with with motherhood, of course, and you want to give it your best shot, motherhood. And when he went to school, I was being asked by lots of people, how is it that you are able to go into a room, you can present easily, you can project your voice? And I realized that some of the skills that I had used and developed when I was at music college and on the stage could be of value to people in business. And that was the start of a business. I also had another business at the time, which was organizing live musical entertainment and general entertainment for events. And we did things throughout Europe as well as in the United Kingdom, some very prestigious venues and clients, which obviously I'm not able to talk about. But I did that from scratch. And then I sold the business in 2017.
Boy, you have led an amazing life.
Oh,
And by the way, everybody, there's a screen that popped up that says read.ai meeting. And not being the technical or technological maven that I should be, I can't seem to exit off the screen. So hopefully it won't intrude. So, as I said, Susan, taking a deeper dive, how did the TEDx talk come about?
it was literally that somebody who's become a very close friend and supporter. She saw me on stage speaking, hadn't seen me before. And one of the things she said was, have you ever done a TEDx? You would be brilliant doing one. here, apply to this organization. That's where I did mine. And the rest is history. Now, part of the process, in case anybody's interested, is that you put in an application, probably a little video as well, dependent on the people that have the license. And then I auditioned and I sang in it. Of course, it's in my blood singing, as
Mhm.
well as doing a little talk. And they said, but that's two speeches, that's two TEDx. We think we should, yeah, I know, typical me. Um, you should go with the one that's the non-speaking one. But later on in the process, they took me to one side, and because we would have to go up and um, show what we're doing and develop it further. And they said, there's something missing from your talk. We think there needs to be some music in it. And we discussed the music, and of course there were license problems,
Yeah.
PRS. And I didn't want to go down that route. It would have been very unfair on any of my ex-colleagues, all of that, because it's international. And I said, well, I suppose I could do a little bit of singing, but I don't think they were expecting me to do as much as I did.
Well, as you would say, well done, you. So does this mean we can expect a second TEDx from
No,
Susan Heaton-Wright? No?
no, I don't think so. No, because for those that haven't watched it, and it would be lovely if you did. It's only 8 minutes long, so it's not a long one. I
Mhm.
actually come on singing, and during the talk, um, because there's an audition, I pretend I'm auditioning, and then at the end I leave singing.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Well, I have listened to it. And I always thought TEDx talks were a little bit longer than 8 minutes, but in this day and age of very short attention spans, I'm sure that that filled up the time.
Absolutely. I mean, traditionally they are 18 minutes maximum,
Hmm.
but I understand that TED is promoting shorter speeches. And I really wanted to go down the route of being concise rather than filling it up for the sake of it.
Well, there is a phrase that is attributed to various people, one of whom is Alice Roosevelt, who was the number one child, age-wise, of former President Teddy Roosevelt. And the expression is be brief, be brilliant, be gone. And
Yes,
I think that in this short attention span time in which we live, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think so. When I was preparing, obviously, I have business friends who have either done TEDx talks or they were also going through that process. And
Hmm.
when I said, it's short, I've timed it, it's about 8 minutes. Oh, well, you've got 10 more minutes to fill up. Why don't you? And it was very interesting what the attitudes were.
Hmm.
Um, but in fact, seeing other TEDx talks, now I listen to them and think how fantastic you are. That was brilliant. I wonder if you could have taken some of those things out and it would have been
Hmm.
more concise.
You
I don't.
know, I think you know that I am a lawyer. I am a
Yes.
non-practicing lawyer at this point in time, but I really learned how to write concisely when I was at law school, because one of the things that always bothered me, and it really comes from our UK tradition, the British tradition, when lawyers were paid by word. So things can be whereas, heretofore, and all these, things that are, you get caught up in your underwear, as it were, an American expression. Um, and so my goal was always to take something like this and to shorten it. And I guess following Ernest Hemingway, who started writing that way, that you can
Oh,
say, impactful with
absolutely.
fewer words. Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting because only a couple of weeks ago at orchestra, the conductor was saying, isn't it strange because there are so many notes. They've been broken down into semiquavers and things like that. And I said,
Mhm.
I wonder if it is because they got paid by the note.
Yes.
And that was an 18th century thing. It
Yes,
changed in the 19th.
definitely.
And
That is a,
everyone turned around, yeah, you're right.
yeah. So how did you, this is my assumption and I could be wrong. I'm thinking, okay, you were an actor, a singer. You learned about the power and impact of language and words. So
Yes.
tell me about the transition into the super communicator. And then I'm going to ask you for some examples, but just tell us about that. How did that
Okay.
happen?
So my company is Superstar Communicator. And
Hmm.
initially, of course, I thought about the performance side and the voice and the preparation. And I had a business mentor who encouraged me not only to trademark, but to come up with a methodology. So I realized that the purpose, the audience, the reason why you are communicating and the context, what you're wanting as the outcome, is an important part at the beginning. And then how you structure the content, of which the brief speaking comes into it, but a great start, a great finish, perhaps telling stories, the power of three, things like that as
Hmm.
content. And so there are 5 steps to it. And so I always use that method now um, in that, and I developed things that go off that. But yes, it's 5 steps because I realized that yes, I perform, but I've already done that work beforehand. And
Hmm.
for other people, they should do as well. Only this week I was speaking to two partners from a law firm in the United Kingdom, and they were saying, in their opinion, a lot of British people don't do the preparation beforehand. They'll show up for the meeting
Hmm.
and listen to and what does that say about how you value the
Other
potential client
people.
or the
Yeah.
client? If
Yeah.
you spent 30 minutes going through the information or looking at their company and things like that, so you've got some idea, even if they're going to be speaking more than you do and you're asking them questions, there is there is an element of, do you know what? I already value you.
So are you willing to share your 5 steps with us?
Yes, of course. I would be delighted. The first one, I call it audience. It's purpose. The
Mhm.
reason why you're speaking, what outcomes you might want for it. Is it is it a podcast interview? Is it a network conversation? Is it um, a client meeting where you're catching up? Who are you speaking to? The relevance to them. Do they speak English as their native language? Are they from the same sector as you? So you know that, and I possibly know, although I'm not a lawyer, there is lawyer speak, such just as there is IT speech or opera speech. You need to make it neutral. And if you
Mhm.
understand who you're speaking to and the seniority, that will help. And then you come to content, the language we use for that. We might modify the language for different sectors, for different age groups as well.
Yes,
A great
right.
start, a great finish using brief speaking. I'm a real fan of that. The power of 3 stories, structuring it
Mhm.
in that way. And then this preparation, which sounds as though it should be earlier on, but it's all of those things, making sure that when you show up, you're going to be calm and you're going to be focused. Because if you're worried about what you're going to say, that little voice is going to go off. Hundred to the dozen, isn't it? We know, we've all been there. And the other people can sniff out that you're winging it, can't they? You know, there's this subconscious little thing. Oh, all right. And then the fourth one is performance, which
Mhm.
is your body language, whether you're showing up virtually like I am to you today, thinking about your facial expressions, your gestures, your posture, because although I would not say that I'm an expert at body language, there are some myths around it, by the way, aren't there? But we
Yes.
know subconsciously when somebody doesn't look confident, or possibly they're slightly dodgy, because there might be some little um, micro leakages, and you think, do I trust this person? And
Yeah.
we want to present the best version of you so they trust you and that you've got credibility around what you're saying. And the final one is the voice. And one of my mantras is
Mm.
you should speak so it's so that other people can listen to you without having to work too hard to hear you. So speak so it's as easy as possible for other people to listen and understand you. And there are some things around that, making the voice more interesting. So we've all been in lectures or listened to people that are monotone and they're so boring.
Yes.
Bless, bless them. And we switch off because it's just so hard. But also thinking about how our voices change in different situations. So if we're
Hmm.
with a difficult client, our voice might go up or things like that. And again, we are maybe showing something that we don't want to show the client. So being aware of that. So those are the 5 areas
Those
in
are
a nutshell.
wonderful. You know what I've noticed in my own practice is that really brought on, I think generationally, one thing we baby boomers love meetings, and they tend to kind of go on and on and on. If you look at the next generations, I mean, meetings are like, um, and during COVID, I know a lot of people who felt the need to check in with people every single day. So they kind of have these nauseatingly long Zooms. And my books are on communication. I'm updating the first one. And one of the sections is about meeting management, because one of the
Yeah.
things that I have done a fair amount of training with, but it's also the blogs I write about it have a huge followership. And both when I became a trained facilitator, but I think it applies to meetings. You really should take it's the 2-for-1 rule, twice as long preparing as you actually have the meeting. And it's interesting how my points kind of dovetail with yours, because the first one is to be strategic. What
Yes.
is it that you want to accomplish?
Oh, absolutely.
At the end of the meeting, something's happened because the second one is inviting the right people, because too
Yes.
frequently in organizations, you invite the people at the senior level, but they're not going to do the work. Second is to have a timed agenda that goes out in advance. And if I want Susan to speak, I say, Susan, I'd like to put you in right here. I'd like you to spend 5 minutes talking about whatever. Um, and just, I have facilitated groups where they're on Zoom. They don't have to have their face up, which is, I think, a problem. And they're not there half the time. But there's a lot of statistics. Harvard did a study that kind of, if you decrease meetings by, 40%, productivity goes way up. And
Wow.
things like, meatless days, certain days of the week where you don't meet,
Yes.
being prepared for meetings, having the timed agendas. And that resonates with people. I mean, yes, I am a baby boomer, but I can't stand these nauseatingly long meetings. And one of the things the voice piece, I really like that addition. But one of the things that bothers me is when people have microphones and they have them way down here. And I always think of them, it's an ice cream cone. You have to pretend you're eating it
Yeah.
in order to project. And so
Yeah.
it's amazing to me. I think a lot of trial attorneys have mastered that, whether it's just kind of instinctual, but they have to play to the jury and they have to speak in a language that people understand, and they have to try to persuade. But I'm always surprised at how few people have been trained, essentially, or they don't get the feedback. People are not honestly telling them this worked, that didn't work. Anyway, interesting. By the way, I have to mention, I love your purple background.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I noticed that that's also something that's uniquely UK. And I used to watch Morse. I don't know if you ever watched Morse.
Oh, my husband loved it.
Yeah,
We were
and
very sad when it finished.
yes, and well, when the chief actor sadly passed away, but there's been some, spin-offs which I think are interesting. But Morse was always seated in a blue room. And not here, but back there, I have a blue room. I kind of took a page out of that and I thought, why do we have these? I mean, I happen to be sitting in a room that's a pale yellow, and yes, that's the entryway, which is a white. But all my other rooms have bright colors, and it's for a lot of people here, it's a little bit unsettling, but I like it. I think it's kind of the spice of life, as it were. So, hi,
Absolutely.
I also, Susan has a great sense of humor, listeners. So a couple of weeks ago, she posted something on LinkedIn where she was riding a broomstick as though she were a witch, and she had three nuggets of information she wanted to pass on. So I would say, apart from your five rules, what are your kind of 3 to 5 little nuggets that you would give somebody in a workaday situation, not a personal situation, but a workaday situation?
Okay. So yeah, I had a photograph of me on a witch's broom when when I went to visit um, Harry Potter, the Harry
Hmm.
Potter place in which is quite close to me, about 10 miles away, for an award ceremony. It was great fun, but the photo has lived on. I would say that first and foremost, knowing who you're going to talk to is really important, and the purpose of the conversation are two of the most important things. From that, you will be able to glean how long you've got, whether you are speaking to people that are in the same industry as you, so you're going to modify what you say,
Mhm.
um, or whether perhaps somebody doesn't speak English as their native language. It might be that culturally they're quite different, and you might need to do a bit of preparation around that so that you are respectful to them and also it lands well with them. Um, you need to really think about how you can explain as if a child can understand.
Yes.
And that is not exclusively to children, but to everyone, because we don't know how much other knowledge that person has. And I'm not saying that you should be speaking down to them. That's certainly not what I'm saying, but make it really clear and concise, and possibly not use jargon or complicated concepts, because people will ask if they
Yeah.
need more information, but also to listen. You're listening to me now, and that's what makes a conversation. You're not listening to me because you're coming up with the next question. You're listening. We're both in this state of a real conversation.
Well, thank you, because that certainly is my goal. And it is about the give and take,
Yes.
and listening is critical in any conversation. So, Susan, let's say you were working with an employee that wanted to have a conversation with his or her boss about a pay raise. So tell me how you might coach that person, or do a little bit of a role play if you feel comfortable with that. How would you go about that? Or how would you go about coaching somebody about
I
that?
I would ask the employee to come up with some, you would call them receipts. I would call them evidence. So case studies of things that they have done, because the line manager might not be aware of everything.
Mhm.
to really demonstrate his or her value to the organization, how long they've been there, the qualifications that they have as well, but also to do a little bit of research to see what else other people are earning, if that information is available, because you might realize that you're not being paid as much as other people, or you get the, oh, we've got no money. Yeah, you've managed to give that person money before. So in that preparation, um, it's a really a big one, because you can then push back on all of the, oh, well, we have no money. Well, you need another 6 months. But look, I've done this, this, and this.
Mhm.
I'm already at that level. And to be prepared to take a deep breath when they push back and say, it is my belief, or use strong words like, I believe that I'm ready to step up to this role. You can see the evidence of what I'm already contributing. And that is at a higher level. I'm ready for this. But always to take that deep breath. I would be coaching them to by pushing back to them so that they won't crumble, so that they will really demonstrate what they're doing.
Good for you. I think that's great advice. And boy, it brought back to me, which I hadn't thought about in preparation, but at one point in my career, I went into my then immediate supervisor when I was, as I'm fond of saying, on my way up the corporate ladder, the meteoric rise to the glass ceiling, as it were. And I said, I'm in this position today. A year from now, I'd like to be in this other position. Tell me what I need to do. And
Yes,
he listed several things. I would then go back on a quarterly basis and say, have I done this? Let me, as you suggest, this is what I did. Does that satisfy this issue right here? And at the very end of the year, I went in and I said, okay, I accomplished what you said I needed to do. Will you help me move into this position? And disappointingly, this person kind of dragged his heels, nothing happened. And then, so I learned a lesson. Incoming, a new department was set up. This was at Southern California Edison Company. It was a healthcare department. We were self-managed and insured, which it no longer is, from what I understand. And a doctor who had worked in this area came in and invited me to his department. Well, then all of a sudden, I was the single most important person in the other department. It was kind of interesting, but kind of one door closes, several others open. But I'm a big believer, really, that there's only one person in charge of your career, and that's you. Um,
absolutely.
and that it's important to identify what you want to move forward. So, Susan, what haven't I asked you that you want to leave with this group before we move on to our little fun game?
It's interesting because I do a lot online, and that
Hmm.
has been ever since 2020. I have delivered content to people from over 140 countries worldwide. So
Wow.
masterclasses and workshops. And I never believed that that would have happened. Of course, we had no idea that COVID would happen, but
Yes.
that is an example of a door opening and
Hmm.
walking through the door and grabbing that opportunity. So for the audience, if you see an opportunity, or if you are given an opportunity, take that deep breath, and go for it.
Well, Susan, that's wonderful. That's great advice. And I guess we're two peas in a pod because I completely agree. So, audience, kind of a fun little game, and is the difference in the language between the UK and the United States. And I've been converted. I use the word call or called a lot instead of saying, this episode is called, Super Communicator, as opposed to, and most people in the United States might say, this episode is entitled. So I've converted from entitled to or titled to called. I love Well Done You. I recently heard, listening to a British author, More Fool Me, which there are times when that's appropriate or applicable. But tell me, I want to say a couple of things that I've written down. If I were to say vacuum, because we use vacuum cleaners here, what would be the British equivalent?
Normally Hoover.
Hoover. I have heard that. We're hoovering. And
Yes,
it
I'm hoovering the staircase.
and I'm vacuuming, although you very rarely catch me doing that. Sweater.
Jumper.
That one just baffles me how that could. I mean, we have a jumper, which is like often a kind of a dress over something. Pharmacy.
Chemist. Sometimes, occasionally people call it pharmacist, but it's mainly chemist.
Oh, I love this one. I have a British friend here. Kiss.
Snog every time.
Snog. I don't know where that comes from. Two
It's a
people
great
snogging.
word, though. It's not just one kiss, it's prolonged. That's all I'll say.
We would say making out. At least that's what they said when I was growing up. So
Yeah,
snogging.
well, that would probably be snog.
And what about man?
We would probably say bloke, dude, but mainly bloke.
Mainly bloke. Now, you shared with me, because I brought up the issue of bloody this or bloody that. And I know that, I mean, bloody here is just, there's a lot of blood someplace, but bloody in the UK is used as a swear word, essentially.
Yes.
And we kind of talked about the history of, Bloody Mary, which was the first daughter of King Henry VIII and that whole
Yes.
history. There's been quite a few, by the way, on our public TV station. There's been quite a few episodes around that recently. So I'm probably better informed than I would have been prior to this conversation. But you mentioned to me something that we use here. We talk about a fanny pack, which is something for those people who wear them. I used to, I don't any longer. It's kind of something you might wear around your waist with a little pack in the back for when you're hiking or walking. And you're laughing, so tell us about that. Why would you not?
Fanny means something completely different in the English language. You've really dropped me in this now. It's a part of a woman, a private part of a woman. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, yes. So whenever an American says, "Oh, where's my fanny pack?" You will lose the entire British audience at that point. So be warned.
That's really funny because here fanny would be behind, would
Yes.
be derriere or butt, as most people would say. I mean, let's face this, in my country now, since the advent of the Trump administration, I'm language that was considered unacceptable. I mean, people are cussing left, right, and center. I even notice on TV the language that's being used, which I suppose is considered being authentic. I can cuss with the best of them, and certainly I do. I used to a lot when I was driving. In fact,
Oh yes, but it's different rules when you're driving.
yeah.
My son was called. I was called in by my son's school when he was at school, complaining about his language, and he said, "But I'm just saying what my mother says behind the wheel when she's driving," and there was really no answer to that.
Well, I have 3 children, and yeah, I mean, I try not to now because it's actually kind of scary because people carry weapons.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yeah.
but all three of my kids, grew up thinking that was natural. They're all adults. They all drive now. And I remember when I don't think my son is the eldest, but my older daughter, I have a son and two daughters. She started doing that, and her husband was like, "What are you doing? What is going on here?" And of course, she thought it was natural, which it's not. But there is, you know, to me, it depends on the language, times, and places. And I think that sometimes when it's directed at somebody else, it can be considered a fighting word. And since in this time in which we live, where there's a lack of civility, I think it's important to avoid that
Yes,
because
I
it
would
can,
agree with that.
it activates the good old lizard brain. So, Susan, I want to thank you so much. This has been delightful. Dare I say that I know that your podcasting partner was not available today, but I think it was Kismet. It was meant to be a
Yes.
dialogue or a conversation between two people. But I do have a request of the audience, and that is my book mentor, who many of you know, Julie Winkle Giulioni, who is an international bestseller with a couple of books. She said to me one day, because I've done several of these conversations about topics of interest to me, and she said, Diana, what you really should be doing is taking kind of some of the advice that you've given in your books and ask people to participate in conversations who are willing to follow one of your principles. And I thought, duh, yeah, that does make sense, doesn't it? So we do have speakers lined up for December that have to do with newsletter and newsletter writing and reading. But starting in the new year in 2026, what I'd really like to do is to get two people who might disagree on a topic, and not a major, huge topic, but it could be vacation days at work. It could just be talked to a girlfriend recently who was traveling with somebody else, and there was a little bit of a discomfort about rooms that were chosen. I mean, it could be anything. And to have a conversation or a dialogue using the word I, and trying to minimize or drop the word you. And so instead of saying, you make me mad, which could incite a riot in the person, it would be, I was upset or I got mad when this happened. So, listeners out there, if any of you are game, as opposed to gamey, if any of you are game and you reach out to me, I would love to have guests who are willing to take that leap. And then finally, I would just say that next month, because our Wise Women and Good Men are on the third Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we have Art Perry, who writes an amazing newsletter, and Amber Powers, who's new to the newsletter writing world. And this is all about how to write a kind of a remarkable newsletter that attracts a followership. So, Susan, thank you again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've totally enjoyed this conversation. And if you have any final thoughts, I cede the stage to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And if anybody wishes to connect with me, my website is superstarcommunicator.com. And there is only one Susan Heaton-Wright on LinkedIn. I would be delighted to connect with you and continue the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you, Susan. I think you will have some people taking you up on that. And I enjoyed this conversation and I would love to keep it going. So let's stay in touch. By the way, what time is it? How far ahead of
It's at the moment it's 18:39, so it's 6:40 p.m.
oh, okay. I
So
was
it's
thinking,
dark here.
yeah, because we're back on standard time as opposed to daylight savings time. So I was thinking it would be later at night, but it's not. So this has worked out well.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to figure out some just between the two of us conversations at around this time frame. So audience, thank you one and all for listening. If you like what we had to say today, later in the day and through the technological maven, Jennifer Coleman, this conversation will be uploaded to my YouTube and also the website, which is www.dianapetersonmore.com, no hyphen. And by the way, Susan and I chatted about this. I am the Moore of the Peterson-More, just because Moore Peterson sounded stupid. And so many people just assume that Peterson was my name. Well, Susan Heaton-Wright, and she's also the Wright. So she and I both have what were probably our birth surnames at the end of our hyphenation. Anyway, thank you again, Susan. I look forward to continuing this conversation. And again, for those of you who are interested in talking to Susan, she's the only Susan Heaton-Wright on LinkedIn. And she is www. Is it supercommunicator.com?
No. It's Superstar Communicator.
Superstar Communicator.
Superstarcommunicator.com.
Great. Well, goodbye for now. And I look forward to getting feedback from any listener and also to getting some volunteers who'd be willing, have the guts to find somebody with whom they have a disagreement and would have a conversation that I could facilitate using I statements. So happy Thanksgiving for those of you who celebrate, and I'll see you in December. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.